A lot of educational YouTube is not built to make you smarter. It is built to make you feel like you understood something faster than you actually did. And that sounds unfair until you look at the incentive structure. The moment a creator says, "Well, it depends," the video risks losing the audience. The moment they keep the caveat, the retention graph may punish them for it. So the unflattering trade starts. Accuracy versus momentum, complexity versus clarity, truth versus watch time. That is the real provocation here. Not that educational creators are all dishonest, and not that short explanations are automatically bad. The problem is narrower and more uncomfortable. The format rewards confidence before comprehension. It rewards the clean takeaway, the decisive headline, the dramatic simplification. If the underlying subject is science, history, psychology, economics, or AI, that pressure can turn honest uncertainty into a liability. Nuance starts looking like dead air. Context starts looking like friction. And you can feel it in the anatomy of the modern explainer. Open with a bold claim. Promise a hidden truth. Compress the backstory into one villain, one turning point, one solution. Then keep the cuts moving so nobody has time to ask whether the premise itself was oversanded. The edit suggests mastery, but sometimes what it really signals is tree-off. What got removed to keep the audience from leaving? Which caveat died because it would have cost 8 seconds? This is where I think people make the wrong moral diagnosis. The easiest criticism is, creators are dumbing everything down. Sometimes, sure, but a more accurate criticism is structural. The platform rewards the version of education that feels narratively complete. Real inquiry is not narratively complete. Real inquiry is unflattering. It loops. It qualifies itself. It admits alternative explanations. It says, this study is suggestive, but the sample is weak, or this trend is real, but causality is not settled. Those are terrible lines if your only KPI is audience drop-off. Look at how educational content often handles scientific uncertainty. A paper becomes scientists prove. A correlation becomes this changes everything. A narrow result becomes a lifestyle conclusion. And the creator may not even be acting in bad faith. The problem is that ambiguity is expensive. To explain what a paper does not prove, how it was designed, what population it covered, and why replication matters takes time, and time is exactly what the retention graph is brutal about. The algorithm does not literally say lie, but it can absolutely make rigor feel commercially irrational. And that is the key distinction this video needs to keep straight. Simplification is not the crime. Good teachers simplify all the time. The question is whether the simplification preserves the shape of the truth or distorts it into something more marketable. There is a difference between translation and flattening. Translation says, here's the core idea, plus the limits. Flattening says, here's the core idea, and I'm going to quietly remove every condition that makes it less exciting. One builds literacy, the other builds overconfidence. Now, to be fair, creators are solving a real problem. If they open with all the qualifiers, half the audience clicks away before the first useful point lands. If they lead with methodological caution, the video can feel like homework. So I understand why so many channels front-load certainty and backload caveats, or bury the caveats in a sentence so quick it functions like legal fine print. But that coping mechanism has a cost. It trains viewers to expect knowledge as a clean reveal instead of a disciplined process. And once that expectation hardens, the entire ecosystem drifts. The creator who says, "We don't fully know yet," sounds weaker than the creator who says, "Here's what's really going on." The careful historian loses to the mythmaker with better pacing. The science communicator who explains confidence intervals loses to the one who says, "Everything you were told is wrong." The format rewards the performance of epistemic dominance. It doesn't always reward the person most committed to representing the evidence faithfully. But I also don't want to pretend nuance is automatically a virtue. Some creators hide behind endless caveats because they are afraid to say anything clear. Some use complexity as theater. And plenty of educational videos are genuinely excellent at balancing accessibility with precision. The best ones do something very hard. They give you a strong thesis, then explicitly mark where the thesis could fail. They keep the story moving without pretending the evidence is cleaner than it is. That is not impossible. It is just harder and often less rewarded. So the uncomfortable question is not whether educational YouTube should be entertaining. Of course it should. The uncomfortable question is what gets amputated in order to keep it entertaining. What level of uncertainty is the creator willing to sacrifice for a cleaner thumbnail promise? What contradictory evidence got excluded because it complicated the emotional arc? When a video feels brilliantly persuasive, is that because the explanation was strong, or because the edit protected the explanation from every detail that could have destabilized it? That matters beyond YouTube drama because educational channels don't just inform. They shape how viewers think knowledge works. If the dominant lesson is that every serious topic can be reduced to one confident answer in 12 minutes, then viewers leave with the wrong model of expertise. They start mistaking fluency for truth, confidence for credibility, and narrative neatness for intellectual honesty. In that world, the creator who admits uncertainty doesn't look responsible. They look unprepared. That is a cultural problem, not just a content problem. My verdict is basically this. Educational YouTube is at its best when it treats clarity as a delivery system for complexity, not a replacement for it. If a channel cannot survive without stripping out the uncertainty that makes the subject honest, then the problem is not just the creator. The problem is the ecosystem teaching creators that epistemic humility is bad television. And until that changes, a lot of learning online will keep delivering the sensation of understanding while quietly removing the parts that make understanding real. If you want reviews that don't just repeat what a video claims, but stress test the framing, the incentives, and the evidence hiding underneath the edit, subscribe to Dr. Review. Because the next upload shouldn't just tell you what you watched. It should challenge whether the story deserved your trust in the first place.